Evan had gotten used to the silence of the asteroid outpost. Out here, far from the busy trade routes, nobody came unless they were lost or desperate. He didn't mind the quiet. It gave him space to work in peace. Every night, he stayed late. In his repair hangar, fixing whatever old machines he had lying around. Some belonged to travelers who'd forgotten to pick them up. Others were simply junk he hoped to bring back to life one day. Working with metal always calmed him. It made sense to him in ways people never did. That night, Evan was finishing repairs on a small shuttle engine. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and leaned back, listening to the soft hum of his tools. The outpost lights flickered once, then steadied. Strange, he thought, but he ignored it. The place was old. Things acted up all the time. A faint tremor rolled across the ground. It was so soft at first that he didn't think much of it. The outpost sometimes shook when the mining machines deep below shifted. But then another tremor came stronger, more deliberate. It wasn't the kind of shaking that came from machines. It felt alive. Evan paused. He slowly placed his wrench down and listened hard. The metal panels outside rattled. A sensor alarm near the door blinked twice, signaling movement. Not just movement, large movement. That was enough to make him walk to the door of the hangar and slide it open, just a crack. Cold air flowed in, carrying a faint smell he didn't recognize, something wild, earthy, and strangely metallic. He stepped out. The sky above the asteroid was filled with millions of stars, brighter than anything people saw on bigger planets. In that cold silver light, the ground glowed faintly. Evan scanned the open ground around the outpost. That's when he saw the shape moving slowly toward him. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the low light, a shadow stretching where no shadow should be. But then it lifted its head. Two glowing, faintly blue eyes caught the starlight. Evan froze. The creature stepped forward, limping slightly. It was bigger than any wolf on Earth, but the shape was unmistakable canine, strong-shouldered, built for running. Its fur shimmered like it was woven from starlight and metal fibers. Strange luminous patterns ran along its sides, lines that pulsed like circuits. It was hurt. Badly. He had heard rumors of alien creatures living on faraway moons, but he had never believed he'd meet one. Especially not here, at his lonely outpost. The wolf stopped a few steps away from him, breathing heavily. Evan felt the urge to run, but he didn't. Maybe because something in its eyes didn't look threatening. It looked desperate. Only then did he notice something clamped gently in the creature's jaws. A tiny body. A pup. Was small, barely the length of his forearm, and its glow was faint, almost gone. Its limbs hung limp, and its breathing, if it had any, was too weak for Evan to see. The mother wolf slowly lowered the pup onto the ground. She kept her head low, watching Evan with tired but cautious eyes. Every muscle in her body trembled from exhaustion and pain. She took one unsteady step back, as if offering the pup to him. Evan stared in disbelief. "You want me to help?" he whispered. The creature didn't respond, of course, but the look in her eyes told him everything. She trusted him. Why? He had no idea. He glanced at the pup. It didn't move. It didn't even twitch. It looked so fragile that he was afraid to touch it. But if he didn't, it would surely die. Evan knelt slowly, moving carefully so he wouldn't scare the mother. His hands shook as he reached out and gently picked up the pup. Its body was cold, too cold for a creature that gave off its own light. Its chest rose and fell in tiny fading breaths. The mother wolf gave a soft, weak rumble in her throat, not a growl, more like a worried warning. Evan nodded, trying to speak in a calm voice. "It's okay. I'll take it inside. I'll try to help." He wasn't sure the creature understood him, but something in her posture relaxed just a little. He carried the pup walked toward the hangar, expecting the mother to stay outside. But she didn't. She limped after him, forcing herself forward, even though each step looked painful. When he stepped inside, she stopped at the door, too big to fit through comfortably, but refusing to leave the entrance. Evan placed the pup gently on his work table. The tools scattered across the metal surface looked harsh and rough next to such. A tiny creature. He carefully cleared space, pushing everything aside until the pup had roomed out up close. Its condition looked worse. Its fur was duller than the mother's, and its glowing lines were nearly dark. Some parts of its body looked like they were built with tiny metallic structures, almost like machine parts, but grown naturally. He had seen a lot of mechanical systems in his life, but never anything like this. He tapped a small scanner and hovered it over the pup. The machine buzzed, confused, unable to read the alien biology properly. Still, it caught energy readings very low ones. The tiny reactor-like organ inside the pup was failing. Evan looked at the mother wolf. She was watching him with intense, hopeful eyes. Her head rested low to the ground, her breathing shallow. She was exhausted, but she wouldn't leave her pup. He swallowed hard. "I'm a mechanic," he murmured to himself. "I fix machines." Not living things, but this creature was both. In a way, maybe his skills weren't completely useless here. He reached for a set of gentle diagnostic tools, the same ones he used to repair miniature drone engines. Carefully, he examined the pup's tiny mechanical structures. A few seemed damaged, maybe from a fall, maybe from stress, maybe from something he didn't understand. He noticed the mother wolf tense when he touched the pup's side. Evan spoke softly toward her. "I'm just checking. I'm not hurting." The mother's ears flicked, as though she understood his tone. He took a steady breath and focused. He didn't have medical knowledge, but he knew how energy systems worked. And the pup's internal energy seemed dangerously unstable. It needed support, not something to stabilize it, something to keep it alive long, enough for its natural systems to recover. Evan grabbed a small tube of nanofibers, usually used to repair. Thin wires in delicate machinery. He softened the fibers with gentle heat and wrapped them around the failing art of the pup's inner structure. It wasn't perfect, but it might help hold things together. He checked the tiny reactor-like organ again. Its flow was too weak. He needed to boost it, just enough to get things moving. He connected the pup to a small power stabilizer, using the lowest setting to avoid overwhelming it. A faint glow pulsed through the pup's body, very faint. But there, Evan sighed in relief. Just slightly. He turned his head toward the doorway. The mother wolf was watching him with wide, tired eyes. Her breathing had slowed, but she didn't look tense anymore. Something in her gaze had softened. She trusted him. He didn't know why, but she did. Evan returned his attention to the pup. He worked gently, carefully, talking quietly, even though the pup couldn't hear him. "Come on, little one. Stay with me. Your mother's counting on you." The minutes stretched. The hum of the stabilizer filled the room. Outside, the wind brushed softly against the metal walls. Evan didn't notice how much time passed. All he knew was that the pup's breathing became just a tiny bit steadier. Not normal, not safe, but steadier. When he finally stepped back, he rubbed his tired eyes and exhaled slowly. He walked to the doorway where the mother wolf waited. She was barely standing now. Exhaustion pulled at her, but she had not moved even an inch away. Evan crouched down a bit so he wasn't towering over her. "I've done everything I can for now," he said softly. "I don't know if it'll be enough, but I'm trying." The mother wolf lowered her head. For a long moment, she simply stared into his eyes. Then she gently touched her nose to his hand. It was the softest, most fragile gesture of trust he had ever seen. Evan didn't breathe for a moment. A wild, alien creature had come all the way to his lonely outpost, carrying her dying young, because for some reason she believed he could help Dot, and now she trusted him completely. He couldn't let her down, Dot. Not ever. Evan didn't sleep at all that night. He stayed in the hangar, with the glowing pup lying on his work table. The mother wolf kept watching from the doorway, too large to come in, but unwilling to leave her child alone for even a second. Every few minutes, Evan checked the stabilizer, connected to the pup, making sure the energy flow stayed steady. He didn't trust the machine to keep working on its own, and he didn't trust himself to step away for even a moment. The pup's breaths were still weak. Its tiny chest rose and fell slowly, almost unsure if it wanted to keep going. But the faint glow that had nearly died before was now pulsing lightly. It wasn't strong, but it was a sign of life. And for now, that was enough to keep Evan going. He wiped the sweat from his palms and looked at the readings again. The numbers flickered uncertainly. The stabilizer helped, but it wasn't enough. The pup's inner system, its living reactor, was too damaged. It was losing energy faster than the stabilizer could support. Evan leaned back, rubbing his tired eyes. "I'm a mechanic," he muttered under his breath. "A mechanic, not a doctor. What am I doing?" But then he heard the soft sound from the doorway. The mother wolf shifted, her claws scraping gently on the floor as she tried to hold herself steady. She was hurting too, limping, breathing hard, but her eyes never left her pup. They were full of worry, full of hope, full of fear, and she had trusted him with her most precious thing. Evan felt something tighten in his chest. He couldn't stop now, not when she believed in him, not when that tiny spark of life was still trying to hold on. He took a deep breath and turned back to the pup. He checked the tiny metallic structures again. The damage was complicated. Some parts looked organic, others looked like natural machinery grown inside the creature. It was incredible in a way, nature and technology mixed together in a form he had never seen before. But that also made it incredibly hard to fix. He didn't know where to start. Still, he began examining the energy flow inside the pup's body. It reminded him of small drone engines. He had repaired in the past engines that needed the right balance of power, or they would collapse. Maybe he could treat this like a machine, carefully, respectfully, but using the tools he understood. He removed the nanofiber support he had placed earlier and replaced it with a stronger, more stable weave. He made tiny adjustments to the stabilizer's flow, reducing the pressure so the pup's weak system wouldn't be overwhelmed. He even modified a cooling strip to keep the mini-reactor from overheating as it tried to recover. None of this was medical treatment. It was engineering, but it was all he could do. Hours passed. The night outside shifted into early morning. The stars began to fade behind a soft silver glow from the nearby sun. But Evan didn't notice. He was too focused on keeping the pup alive. At one point, his hands grew shaky from exhaustion. He rested his palms on the table and breathed slowly to steady himself. The pup let out a tiny sound so faint he almost missed it. A weak whimper, barely there, but real. Evan looked over quickly. The pup's eyes were still closed, but something had changed. Its breathing had gained a little more rhythm. Its glow flickered just a bit brighter than before. Evan smiled, just a little. "You're fighting. Good." He glanced toward the doorway. The mother wolf had heard the sound too. She raised her head slightly, her eyes lighting with a fragile hope. Evan nodded gently to her. "I think it's hanging on." The mother lowered her head, not in defeat, but in relief. She let out a long, tired breath. Evan didn't know how long she had been carrying the pup before reaching his outpost. From the dust on her fur and the tiredness in her movements, it must have been a long, painful journey. He wondered how she even found him. Had she seen the lights from the hangar? Had she sensed the machines inside? Or was it pure chance? He didn't. No, but he was grateful she had come. Evan pulled up a stool and sat down beside the table. He needed to think. The pup wasn't saved yet. It was stable for now, but that could change quickly. Its internal reactor was still too weak. The stabilizer could only help for so long before it burned out or drained completely. He needed a better solution. His gaze drifted around the hangar, scanning the shelves filled with old parts. He had pieces from broken drones, discarded mining, tools, even fragments from old ships. Maybe, just maybe, something in all that junk could help him build a temporary energy support device, not a full replacement. Just something strong enough to give the pup's natural system a chance to repair itself. Evan stood and started digging through the shelves. The metal clinked softly as he moved pieces aside. He found an old drone Core 2 damage to use fully, but the micro-components inside might still be good. He set it on the table. Next, he grabbed a thin coil from a discarded mining sensor. It still worked, surprisingly. Then he pulled out a small cooling chip from a dismantled repair bot. He lined everything neatly beside the pup, keeping his movements slow so he wouldn't startle the mother wolf watching nearby. The idea forming in his head was risky. He wanted to build a microreactor support unit very small, very gentle, and capable of giving the pup's failing system a steady boost. He had never built something like this before. Not for a living creature, but he had built temporary power units for delicate machines that couldn't handle a full charge. This would be similar. If he could get it right, he began working carefully, almost whispering each step to himself. He didn't want to make noise. He didn't want to cause stress. He soldered tiny wires, reconnected delicate circuits, and built a small stabilizing frame no bigger than a coin. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he kept going. Every now and then, he glanced at the pup to make sure it was still breathing. Each time, he felt relief wash through him. Several hours later, the device was ready. It was small, barely the size of his thumb, but it glowed faintly, showing that it held energy. The flow was gentle, smooth, controlled. Exactly what the pup would need. Evan took a deep breath as he prepared to attach it. This was the hardest part. If he placed it wrong, the pup system could collapse. If he placed it right, it might give the child enough strength to survive. He spoke softly to the sleeping pup. "I'm going to help you. Just hang in there." Then he worked with slow, steady hands. The mother wolf watched every movement. She stood completely still, even though Evan could tell she wanted to rush in and protect her young. Her trust in him was the only thing keeping her calm. Evan carefully connected the tiny device to the pup's inner structure, linking it to the failing energy flow. For a moment, nothing happened. The room felt completely silent. Then the pup's glow brightened, just a small but clear pulse. Evan's breath caught. The readings on the stabilizer rose slightly. The pup's breathing grew a tiny bit stronger. He looked at the mother wolf. "It's working," he whispered. The mother wolf slowly stepped forward until her head rested near the pup. She gave a soft, trembling breath, touching her nose gently to its tiny paw. Evan watched her eyes soften with relief. He stepped back, giving her space. He didn't want to disturb this moment, but he stayed close enough to keep watch, because he wasn't sure how long the progress would last. Hours passed quietly. Evan checked the readings, tightened a few components, and made sure the energy flow stayed stable. The pup's glow slowly grew steadier, like a small light strengthening in the dark. The mother wolf eventually laid down near the entrance, finally letting herself rest. She closed her eyes, but only halfway. She was listening, watching, protecting even in her exhaustion. Evan sat on the floor beside the table, leaning against a crate. He felt tired, but also strangely peaceful. He had spent years fixing machines for strangers who rarely thanked him. But tonight felt different. He wasn't just repairing metal. He was saving a life. When he looked at the mother wolf again, she met his gaze. And although she couldn't speak, the gratitude in her eyes was clear. Evan wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if the pup would survive all the way through. But he knew one thing. He wasn't giving up, and neither was the mother. The long night slowly turned into a pale morning, but Evan hardly noticed the change. He had been awake so long that everything felt like one endless stretch of time. His eyes were tired, and his back ached from leaning over the work table, but he didn't stop checking the tiny alien pup. Every few minutes, he adjusted something, or checked the faint glow coming from its body. The mother wolf was still lying by the entrance, watching everything with half-open eyes. She looked exhausted, but she refused to fully rest. Her breathing was slow and heavy, and Evan could tell she was injured, though he wasn't sure how badly. Still, she didn't make a sound. Her only concern was her pup. Evan walked over to her slowly and crouched at a respectful distance. He didn't want to upset her. He spoke in a soft voice. "You should rest. I'll watch your little one." The mother wolf blinked once, her glowing eyes calm but alert. She didn't move closer, but she didn't move away either. She simply understood that he was still trying his best. Evan returned to the table. The small support unit he built was working, but the pup's inner system was still unstable. The electric-like flow inside its body flickered every now and then, and each flicker made Evan's heart jump. He stared at the worn-out stabilizer, hoping it wouldn't lose power. He had patched it up earlier, but it wasn't built for healing. It was built for machines. And although the pup had mechanical parts within it, it was still a living creature. Living things were delicate. He leaned on the table and let out a slow breath. "What are you made of, little one?" He whispered. The pup was too still. Too small. Too fragile. He wanted to help, but he needed to understand how the mother wolf and her pup even worked. Their bodies were a perfect blend of nature and technology. The metal-like lines glowing under their skin, were they natural? Or did someone put them there? He didn't know. And not knowing scared him. He pulled a small diagnostic scanner from the drawer. It was meant for checking ship circuits, not alien biology, but it was the best tool he had. He ran the scanner lightly over the pup. The screen flickered with strange readings patterns he had never seen before. Some signals looked almost like heartbeat rhythms. Others looked like power flow diagrams from machinery. He rubbed his forehead. I wish there was a manual for this. Outside, the wind brushed against the metal walls again. The quietness of the outpost felt heavier than ever. Evan wasn't used to having company, especially not company that relied on him for survival. It made him feel nervous and responsible in a way he wasn't sure he was ready for. When he looked up, he saw the mother wolf had tried to stand, but was struggling to keep her balance. She placed one injured paw forward, then another, but her leg trembled under her weight. Evan rushed toward her instinctively, then stopped when she lifted her head and gave him a firm look. She didn't want help for herself, not until her pup was safe. Evan lowered his voice. At least let me check you when I'm done. With the little one, you're hurt too. She blinked at him slowly, acknowledging his words, but not agreeing or disagreeing. She simply lay back down, keeping her gaze fixed on her pup. Evan felt something twist inside him. Her loyalty was powerful. Her trust was stronger. He didn't know many humans who would go this far for someone they cared about. Yet this alien mother limped across an asteroid, weak and injured, just to find anyone who might help her baby survive. He returned to the table and started adjusting the shapes of the small device he had built. The stabilizer light flickered nervously. It was overheating. He needed to find a way to cool it before it shut down. He hurried to a cabinet and grabbed a coolant strip he had used earlier. This one was old and only half working, but it was better than nothing. He cut it into smaller pieces and gently slid them under the device. It hissed softly as it cooled down. The stabilizer light brightened a bit, showing that the temperature was returning to normal. Evan sighed in relief. Good, that's better. He glanced at the pup again. Its breathing was soft but steady. Its tiny glowing lines were beginning to pulse in a natural rhythm. The small improvement made Evan smile faintly. He didn't know how strong the pup was, but it was definitely fighting. Hours passed quietly. Evan stayed close, adjusting wires, tightening tiny screws, and checking the energy flow. His hands moved steadily, even as his body begged him to rest. He didn't want to miss even a second. Anything could happen. At one point, the pup let out another faint whimper. Its eyelids fluttered, showing a weak blue glow underneath. Evan stepped closer, leaning in carefully. Hey, you're waking up a little. The pup's head moved just slightly. Its body shook weakly, like it wasn't sure where it was. Evan gently placed his fingers near it, not touching, just letting his presence be known. It's okay. You're safe. Your mother is here. The pup tried to lift its head, but didn't have the strength. It laid down again, breathing out softly. Still, that small movement was enough to bring hope. It meant the small device was helping. Evan looked toward the mother wolf. She had seen the movement too. She slowly lifted her head, her eyes brightening in a soft glow. She didn't step forward, but her tail shifted slightly on the ground, a sign of relief. For a moment, the hanger felt calm, like the danger was passing, and everything might be okay. But the feeling didn't last. The stabilizer flickered again. Evan's eyes snapped toward it. The energy flow readings jumped strangely up, down, up again. Something wasn't right. He quickly checked the wires and the coolant strips, but they looked fine. The problem wasn't the support device. The problem was the pup's own inner system. It was trying to restart itself, and the unstable energy flow was creating pressure inside the small body. Evan spoke under his breath. Come on, hold steady. Don't overload. He worked quickly, adjusting settings on the stabilizer. The pup's glow grew uneven, the pulses becoming irregular. The inside readings on the device warned of low energy, then high, then low. Again, Evan felt panic rise in his chest. He had to act now. He disconnected one small wire, slowing the flow. The pup's glow dimmed dangerously. He quickly changed the angle, reconnecting it lightly to redirect the pressure. The glow steadied again, but remained faint. He wiped his forehead. Okay, stay with me. The mother wolf rose to her feet again, her posture tense. She could sense the shift in the pup's energy. She gave a low sound, not loud, just worried. Evan raised a hand gently toward her. I'm helping. Just a small adjustment. He wasn't sure she understood his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. She stayed where she was. Though her breathing remained sharp. Evan continued working, steadying the pup's internal flow as best he could. After several long minutes, the pulses became smoother. The light inside the pup calmed. The stabilizer stopped flickering. Evan finally stepped back and let out a breath he had been holding for too long. That was close. He sank onto the chair beside the table, feeling drained. He rubbed his face with both hands. The pup wasn't out of danger yet, but it had survived another challenge. He looked toward the mother wolf. Something changed in her expression. She didn't just look worried now. She looked like she understood how hard he was trying. Slowly, she stepped forward, ignoring her own pain. She stood only a few feet from him now. Evan stayed perfectly still, respecting her space. She leaned, her head down, and gently nudged his arm with her nose. A soft, thankful touch. Evan swallowed hard, touched by the gesture. "I won't let your little one go," he whispered. "I promise." The mother wolf turned her head toward the pup, then back at him again, as if she was telling him she believed him completely. Evan knew the road ahead was still uncertain. The pup's system might fail again. The mother needed help too. And he had no idea if his tools and skills were enough to save them both. But he also knew something else. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone. This tiny life depended on him. This wounded mother trusted him. And now, he wasn't just a mechanic on a forgotten outpost. He was their only hope. The day passed slowly, and by the time the dim evening light returned to the asteroid outpost, Evan's entire world had narrowed down to the tiny pup on his table and the watchful mother wolf at the door. Every sound, every flicker of the small device he created, every small change in the pup's breathing made his heart tighten. He didn't want to miss a single moment. He checked the energy readings again. The glow inside the pup was steadier now, but still too faint to be safe. Its small mechanical lines pulsed weakly, like a heartbeat struggling to find its rhythm. The micro-support unit he had built was holding, but he could tell it wasn't strong enough to last much longer. The mother wolf lifted her head again, sensing the tension. Her glowing eyes were tired, but focused on him. Evan tried to smile at her, though worry pulled at his face. "It's okay. I'm still here. I won't stop." He spoke softly, even though he wasn't sure she could understand his words. But his tone she understood. She lowered her head again, her ears twitching lightly. Evan placed his hands on the table and leaned over the tiny body. He gently brushed a finger near the pup's paw, careful not to touch anything sensitive. The pup didn't move, but its breathing continued. That was something. A sign that it wasn't giving up. But Evan could feel it. Things were reaching a point where the small fixes he had been doing wouldn't be enough. The pup's inner power source needed a stronger push, something more stable than the temporary device he made from scrap parts. It needed a new energy core. Not a full one, just something to carry it through the critical phase. Evan walked to the back of the hangar where he stored old machines. Dust gathered on tall shelves, filled with pieces he had collected over the years. He searched through small containers, wires, engine scraps, microchips, everything he thought might help. But nothing felt right. He sat back on the floor, rubbing his hand through his hair. What am I missing? He closed his eyes, trying to think clearly. The pup system wasn't like any machine he knew. It wasn't fully metal. It wasn't fully biological. It was a perfect mix of both. Its energy core wasn't a simple battery or reactor. It was more like a small living heart that also worked like a power unit. He needed something that could match that kind of flow. He looked at the shelves again. His eyes scanned the boxes until he noticed one he hadn't touched in years. A small metal crate, thinner than the others. He had forgotten what was inside. He pulled it down and opened it. Inside was an old prototype he had tried to build long ago, a tiny reactor designed to power miniature drones for long periods. It had never worked right for drones because it produced too soft and gentle a flow of energy. But that gentle, steady power safe enough for fragile machinery might be perfect for the pup. Evan's heart jumped with hope. This might work. He carried the crate to the table and carefully opened the reactor. The small glowing core inside was still functioning after all this time. Not strong enough for machines, but possibly strong enough to give the pups failing energy system the steady push it needed. But connecting it wouldn't be easy. It wasn't built to attach to anything living. He would need to make an adapter, something that could link the pup's natural energy pathways to the slow reactor flow without hurting it. Evan gathered tools and started working. His hands moved fast but carefully, shaping thin wires, soldering tiny connectors, building the adapter as gently as he could. His heart raced, not from fear, but from urgency. He didn't know how much longer the pub system could survive in this half-working state. He worked for almost 2 hours straight, barely blinking, until finally he had something that looked promising. A small adapter shaped like a tiny ring, lined with soft nanofibers and connected to the gentle reactor dot. Now came the hardest part. He walked to the table and took a deep breath. He looked at the pup, then at the mother wolf. She lifted her head, her eyes glowing with alertness. She seemed to feel the shift in the air, sensing something important was about to happen. Evan spoke softly, trying to calm her. I need to do something risky, but I think it's the only way to save your little one. The mother wolf didn't move. She didn't growl or step back. She just stared at him with full trust, even though she must have sensed his nervousness. Evan leaned over the pup. Its breathing was shallow. The glow inside its body flickered like a candle in the wind. He worked carefully, his hands steady despite the pressure he felt. He disconnected the small temporary device. The pup's glow dipped immediately. Evan felt his heart skip, but forced himself to focus. He placed the adapter gently around the tiny energy organ inside the pup. The nanofibers wrapped themselves softly around the living and mechanical structures. He attached the reactor. For a moment, nothing happened. The room felt too quiet. The air felt thick. Evan held his breath. Then, slowly, the tiny reactor began to hum. A soft, warm light flowed through the adapter, traveling into the pup's inner core. The faint glow inside the pup grew stronger, just a little, but enough to make Evan exhale shakily. It's working. The pup's tiny chest rose a bit higher. The light patterns on its body pulsed in a more natural rhythm. The reading steadied. Evan let out a long breath and leaned back, placing a hand over his heart. He hadn't realized how tense he had been until that moment. But the relief didn't last long. Suddenly, the stabilizer alarm, a sharp sound that cut through the quiet like a warning bell. Evan shot up. The reactor was pushing energy steadily, but the pup's inner pathways were reacting unpredictably. Its system was waking up faster than expected, pulling energy too quickly. Evan acted fast. He grabbed his tools, adjusting the adapter ring while keeping the reactor flow stable. The pup's glow flickered again, brighter and then dimmer. Evan's breath came faster. This fragile moment could make or break everything. Come on, stay with me. He tightened the small wire. The glow steadied. He adjusted a tiny connector. The readings rose slightly. He changed the angle of the reactor flow. The pup's breathing grew deeper. The mother wolf stood fully now, her body tense, her eyes locked on Evan's hands. She didn't make a sound, but the air around her felt like it was trembling with worry. Evan didn't look away. He kept working, trusting his instincts. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, everything aligned. The pup's glow settled into a soft rhythm. The reactor hummed steadily. The readings leveled out. The pup breathed in, then out, calmly and smoothly. Evan slumped into the chair, feeling his heartbeat slow after the long rush of panic. Okay, you're all right. The mother wolf stepped forward very slowly. She came close enough that her breath warmed Evan's arm. She looked down at her pup, then at him. Her eyes were softer than he had ever seen them. She lowered her head and gently nudged his hand with her nose again, this time with more strength. A gesture of deep trust. Evan swallowed hard. He brushed the pup's paw lightly and whispered, "You're strong, both of you." He leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't sleep, but he allowed himself a moment of quiet, a moment of hope that the pup was not completely safe. Yet, but for the first time, Evan felt real confidence. The tiny reactor was holding. The pup's body was responding. And the mother wolf. She was watching him not with fear, but with gratitude. He knew this wasn't the end. There might be more problems, more challenges, more moments where the pup fought for its life. But now, Evan wasn't scared of what was ahead, because he was no longer alone. The mother believed in him. The pup had begun to fight, and he had found strength in himself that he never knew he had. Evan barely slept that night. Every few minutes, he would open his eyes and check the small pup lying on the table. The glow inside the tiny creature still pulsed softly, steady, and warm. The gentle reactor he connected was working, but he didn't let himself relax too much. He knew things could change at any moment. The mother wolf stayed beside the table the whole time. She didn't lie down to rest, not even once. Her glowing eyes remained fixed on her little one, but every now and then she glanced at Evan too. She watched him with a strange calmness, as if she was learning to understand him. Evan sat on a stool, rubbing his tired eyes. "You know," he whispered softly, "if someone told me a year ago that I'd be fixing an alien wolf baby, I would have told them they needed sleep." He gave a tiny laugh under his breath. The mother wolf didn't understand the words, of course, but she seemed to notice his tone. She blinked slowly, almost like she was responding. As the hours passed, the pup began to show small signs of improvement. Its breathing grew deeper and steadier. The light patterns along its tiny mechanical lines became more regular. When Evan touched its paw gently, he felt a slight reaction, like the little creature was trying to respond. "Hey, that's good," he whispered. "That means you're waking up." He felt something warm in his chest. It wasn't joy exactly, but something close to hope. For days, everything had been filled with fear, uncertainty, and desperation. But now there was a small, growing confidence inside him. Still, he knew they weren't done. The reactor he used wasn't meant to be a long-term solution. It was old, it was a prototype, and it could fail if the pup's energy needs changed too. Quickly, he needed to prepare for whatever came next. He stood up, stretching his sore back, and walked around the small hangar. Everywhere he looked, tools and scraps were scattered from the long night. He picked up a few pieces and placed them back in their boxes. He didn't want the place to look like chaos. If the mother wolf stayed here longer, he needed the space. To feel safe for her too. After cleaning a little, he walked back to the table. The mother wolf raised her head again, her ears twitching, but she didn't grow anxious. Not like before. Evan slowly reached out his hand. "I'm just checking," he said softly. The mother wolf didn't move away. That small change in her behavior felt huge to him. Days ago, she had been ready to attack him if he stepped too close. Now she let him near her pup without hesitation. He leaned down and studied the readings on his small monitor. Everything looked stable. Stable, but not strong enough. He frowned. The glowing patterns in the pup system still looked fragile. As if one wrong surge of energy could throw everything off balance again. "We need the real fix," he muttered. "Something permanent. But what?" The pup's energy system wasn't like anything he had seen. It wasn't a normal mechanical core. It wasn't a battery. It was a living organ that needed a very specific type of energy, something gentle, stable, almost natural. He looked at the mother wolf. Her body glowed faintly with the same shimmering patterns. Her energy was strong and fully developed. That meant her kind had some natural ability to maintain a living mechanical balance. Maybe. The answer wasn't in machines. Maybe the answer was in understanding her. The mother wolf suddenly shifted, as if sensing his eyes on her. She held his gaze, glowing eyes steady, calm, intelligent. Evan had seen many animals in his life, some local, some strange alien creatures, but he had never seen anything look at him the way she did. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was something else, like awareness. "Can you show me?" he whispered. She tilted her head slightly, not understanding the words, but sensing the request. Evan sighed and looked down. "I wish I knew how to communicate." He walked to the corner of the hangar and grabbed his old digital notebook, a device he used to sketch ideas. He drew a simple picture, the pup in the center, a dim light inside it, and then he drew the mother wolf with a bright glow. Then he drew an arrow from the mother to the pup. He turned the screen toward her. She stared at it quietly. At first, she didn't react, but then her ears lifted, and she moved slightly closer. Her eyes focused on the drawing of the pup. Evan tapped the dim area in the drawing. "Weak." He pointed at the mother. "Strong." Then he pointed back at the pup. "Help." The mother wolf stared at him for a long moment. Her glow flickered very faintly, as if she were processing something. Finally, she stepped toward the table. Evan's breath caught. She leaned her head close to her pup and gently placed her snout near the tiny body. Her chest glowed softly brighter than before. A faint ripple of light ran along her fur, down her legs, and through her paws. Evan's eyes widened. Was she activating something? Soft sparks of light traveled from her to the pup. Not electric sparks, gentle ones, almost like floating. Dust made of energy. They drifted through the air like tiny glowing particles and settled onto the pup's body. The pup's glow responded, slowly but noticeably. The small body pulsed with a little more strength. Evan stepped closer, watching with amazement. "You're sharing your energy?" The mother wolf continued the process for several seconds before pulling back. The glowing particles faded away. She looked exhausted, but calm. The pup had a stronger glow than before. Not a miracle jump, but enough that Evan could see it clearly with his own eyes. "That's it," Evan whispered with excitement. "Your energy matches its system perfectly. You're stabilizing it from the inside." He placed a hand over his mouth. This changed everything. If he could build a permanent energy solution, modeled after the mother's natural flow, the pup wouldn't need the temporary reactor anymore. It could live, normally heal, fully grow, without depending on a machine. He looked at the mother wolf with wonder. "You've been the key all along." She blinked slowly, as if she had known this. From the beginning, Evan got to work. He studied the glowing particles still lingering in the air. He turned on a scanner, trying to capture readings of the energy signature. The device showed faint patterns, nothing clear, but enough to see shapes, rhythms, and flow patterns. He grabbed a fresh notebook and filled pages with sketches. Arrows, diagrams, waveform lines, ideas. He scribbled notes about building a soft reactor core that mimicked biological flow rather than forcing machine-like power. He didn't know if he could perfect it in time, but he was determined to try. Hours passed again, and the hangar filled with soft humming noises from tools. The mother wolf stayed close to the pup, but she watched Evan work with something like quiet interest. She seemed to understand that what he was doing was for her child. Every now and then, she leaned close to the pup and shared another soft wave of glowing particles. Each time she did, the tiny creature glowed a bit stronger. The pup even moved once, just a small twitch of its paw, but it was enough to make Evan freeze in shock. He whispered, "You're coming back." The mother wolf let out a low, soft sound, something like a breath of relief. It wasn't a howl. It wasn't a growl. It was a gentle, emotional sound, almost like gratitude. Evan felt his eyes sting unexpectedly. He quickly wiped them. He wasn't someone who cried easily, but seeing the pup fight, seeing the mother trust him, seeing the small life slowly returning, it did something to him. It made him feel responsible in a way he hadn't expected. As night approached again, Evan was still working. The new design he was building was taking shape. It wasn't finished, but he was getting closer. The readings he collected from the mother wolf's energy helped him understand how the flow should move gentle, circular, like a breathing pattern. As he soldered another piece, he spoke softly. I'm going to make sure your little one has a future. I won't let anything happen. He didn't know if the mother wolf understood the actual words, but she understood his voice. She lowered her head slightly, acknowledging him. The pup's glow flickered again, but this time it wasn't weak. It was a flicker of awareness. Its tiny eyes opened a little. Evan froze, staring. The little alien wolf pup blinked slowly, confusion and tiredness in its gaze. The mother wolf let out another low sound, not loud, but filled with emotion. She moved closer, touching her snout gently to her pup's head. The pup responded with the smallest movement. A tiny nuzzle. Evan felt a wave of relief wash over him like warm water. The pup was waking up. That wasn't healed. It wasn't fully safe. But it was alive, aware, and fighting. And now, Evan knew exactly what he needed to do for the final step. The moment the tiny pup opened its eyes, everything inside the quiet hangar changed. The soft glow on the table felt warmer. The air felt lighter. And the mother wolf, who had been strong and silent through all the fear, lowered her head and touched her pup gently, as if afraid that even a small breath might break the moment. Evan stood frozen, barely daring to move. For days he had worked nonstop. He had worried, doubted, hoped. And now, seeing the small creature blinking up at its mother, he felt something in him loosen, a deep weight he didn't realize he had been carrying. He stepped closer slowly, not wanting to startle either of them. The mother wolf watched him, but her eyes were not suspicious anymore. They were calm, steady, trusting. That trust made his hands shake a little. You're awake, he whispered softly to the pup. The tiny creature didn't fully understand the words, but it turned its head slightly toward his voice. Its glowing eyes were still weak, still tired, but alive. And that was enough. Evan felt a small laugh escape him. Quiet, shaky, full of relief. You did it, both of you. The mother wolf let out the same soft sound she had made earlier. Low and warm. Evan didn't know the meaning, but he understood the feeling behind it. But even with this miracle, he knew the danger wasn't gone. The pup was awake, but its energy core was still fragile. It needed a permanent solution, something that could support it for life, not a temporary fix. Evan placed his tools on the table and looked at the half-finished device he had been building. It was small, round, and shaped almost like a tiny heart. It glowed faintly because it was designed to sync with a living rhythm, not force power like a machine. He had built it based on the mother wolf's energy, copying the gentle wave the mother shared with her pup. Now he needed to complete it. The pup blinked again, letting out a tiny sound, weak but real. The mother wolf touched her nose to its head, and soft glowing dust floated through the air once more. The pup's glow strengthened again. Evan watched carefully. The pattern was always the same. The mother's energy flowed in soft waves, moving slowly from her to the pup. Not too strong, not too fast. Just steady enough to support. I need to match that pattern perfectly, Evan said to himself. He went back to work, adjusting wires, shaping the tiny container, placing the energy layering inside. Every movement he made, he double-checked. The mother wolf watched him, not nervous, but expectant-like. She knew he understood what needed to be done. Hours passed. The pup rested while Evan worked, and every so often, the mother wolf shared another soft wave of glowing particles. Each time, the pup's body responded, building more strength. Finally, as the faint morning light from outside touched the edges of the hangar, Evan held the completed device in his hands. It was small, smooth, and warm, not mechanical cold. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. He had shaped it like an energy organ, not a machine part, because it needed to live with the pup, not replace anything. He looked at the mother wolf. This will help, but I need to attach it carefully. The mother wolf stepped closer to her pup. Her glow dimmed slightly, as if she were preparing herself. Evan approached slowly, holding the device in one hand and keeping his movements calm. He placed the device near the pup's energy core. The small creature looked up at him with tired, confused eyes, but it didn't struggle. It trusted him too, even in its weakness. "This won't hurt," Evan whispered. "I promise." He gently positioned the device. The nanofibers at the base of the small core reacted instantly, sensing the pup's living energy. They spread softly, not forcing, not pushing, just connecting. A faint pulse ran through the device, then another, and then, like breathing soft waves of light, spread through the pup's tiny body. Evan's eyes widened. It was working. The glow inside the pup grew brighter, steadier, more balanced. For the first time, the patterns on its small body looked natural, not weak or fading. The new core matched the mother's energy exactly, gentle, warm, living. The pup blinked more fully now, lifting its small head just a little. It was still weak, but it was no longer fading. It was healing. The mother wolf placed her paw beside her pup gently. She looked at Evan with a depth he couldn't describe, something between gratitude and deep emotion. Evan breathed out shakily. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Both of you." The pup made a tiny sound and tried to move. Its legs shook, but it managed to shift closer to its mother. The mother wolf lowered her head and nuzzled her pup, her body glowing brighter than it had in days. Evan stepped back to give them space. He leaned on a nearby table and finally allowed himself to rest for a moment. His shoulders felt heavy, but the tension that had lived in him since the pup arrived was slowly melting away. When he looked at the mother wolf again, she wasn't watching him with caution anymore. She was watching him like someone who understood. Someone who knew what he had done. He had saved her child. After some time, the mother wolf gently lifted her pup in her jaws, not harshly, but with care. The pup hung quietly, glowing softly. The mother turned toward the hangar door, pausing for a long second. Evan's heart tightened. "You're leaving?" Of course they were. They didn't belong in a metal hangar on a human outpost. They belonged out there, where the asteroids opened into glowing tunnels and strange alien forests. Wherever their home was, it wasn't here. But even though he understood, something inside him felt unexpectedly heavy. He had grown attached. More than he expected. The mother wolf turned back toward him one last time. Her glowing eyes held his gaze, steady and calm. Then she stepped closer, so close that he could feel her soft breath on his chest. Evan stood still, hardly breathing. She lowered her head and gently pressed the side of her face against his arm. It was not an animal gesture. It was a thank you. A deep one. Evan swallowed hard. He raised a slow, careful hand and lightly touched the side of her head. Her fur was warm, pulsing faintly with light. "Take care of your little one," he whispered. She blinked once, a slow, emotional blink, then turned and walked toward the door. The pup, now glowing steadily with its new energy core, let out a tiny sound, like a soft call. Before stepping outside, the mother wolf paused again and looked back at Evan, one last moment of silent connection. Then she left the hangar and disappeared into the soft blue light of the alien horizon. Evan stood there quietly long after they were gone. The hangar felt different now, still silent, still lonely, but touched by something new. something that made him feel less alone. He looked at the tools scattered across the table, the glowing dust still hanging faintly in the air, and the small empty space where the pup had lain. A gentle smile grew on his face. "I'll remember." "This," he whispered Dot. He walked to the door and looked out into the endless stretch of asteroids, glowing mist and floating rocks. Somewhere out there, a mother and her now healing pup were traveling home. He hoped the pup would grow strong. He hoped it would run again, and he hoped that maybe, someday, they might cross paths again, even if only for a moment. Evan stepped back. Inside, closed the door, and let out a long breath. He had fixed many things in his life engines, machines, damaged ships, but this was the first time he had repaired something that wasn't just metal. This time, he had saved a life, 2 lives, and somehow that changed him forever.